Hey everybody, today we will talk about the skeletal tissue. You know that there are 4 types of tissues in the body: connective tissue, muscular tissue, epithelial tissue, and neural tissue. Some connective tissue structures form the skeleton. For example, what are those connective tissue structures form the skeleton? You already know the bones, cartilages, right? And bones are connected to each other by ligaments. So those few structures, connective tissue structures that form the skeleton belong to the skeletal tissue. So today we will basically talk about the skeletal tissue structures. We'll talk about the cartilages, we'll talk about the bones. So skeletal tissue structures are bones, cartilages, and ligaments. Among these 3, only bones are vascular. That means the bones have blood vessels, right? Cartilages and ligaments are avascular. A means absence, okay? No blood vessels. So bones have blood vessels. So bones are vascular, and other 2 structures, cartilages and ligaments, are avascular. And vascular. That means absence of blood vessels, no blood vessels. Bones also have nerves. That's why when fracture of bone occurs, bleeding occurs as well as pain. There are 3 types of cartilages. You already know that. Most common type is called hyaline cartilage, and other 2 are elastic and fibro. Since hyaline is the most common type cartilage, most of the cartilages of your body is hyaline. Which structures are formed by hyaline cartilage? I mentioned before, I am repeating again. Whole fetal skeleton, skeleton of a fetus, number 1, is hyaline cartilage. No bone in fetal skeleton. Number 2, costal cartilages attached to the ribs, costal cartilages. Number 3, you already know, articular cartilage that covers the bones at the joints, hyaline cartilage, articular or joint cartilage. Then respiratory tract, in your trachea, larynx, bronchi, right? Those are hyaline type cartilage. In hyaline cartilage, you will see, you must remember the histology of hyaline cartilage: lacunae and chondrocytes inside. So few chondrocytes located inside the lacunae and plenty of matrix in between. Okay, so that is hyaline. You must remember the picture. Okay, so chondrocytes in lacunae, few, and plenty of matrix. Hyaline cartilage gives support, flexibility, and resilience. Then elastic cartilage. Elastic cartilage is found only in few structures. Example, your ear starts with E, right? And epiglottis inside your larynx. Both start with E. And elastic cartilage has elastic fibers, makes sense, and that gives flexibility. So you know that you can bend your ear, you can change the shape of your ear, right? That is the elasticity. And if you take the pressure out, it will go back to its actual shape, right? So that is the elasticity present in elastic cartilage. And if you see elastic cartilage under microscope, you will see chondrocytes in lacunae, but the number is much higher than the hyaline. So, lacunae, chondrocyte inside it, but the number is much more than hyaline. Also, in matrix, you will see elastic fibers. So, these are elastic fibers. Okay. So, this is elastic type cartilage. Fibrocartilage. Its name is telling you it has plenty of fibers. What kind of fibers? Collagen fibers. So, lot of fibers in a structure makes the structure very tough. I mentioned it a few times before. The structure has plenty of fibers, that means it is what? Tough, right? Strong. So, which structures are formed by fibrocartilage? Pubic symphysis. You know this piece of cartilage that connects the hip bones anteriorly, and intervertebral discs, the disc between vertebrae. These structures must be very strong, right? Because you know that your vertebral column does what? Transmits?
Weight of your body.
One person is answering you. Okay. Vertebral column, what's the main function? Transmitting the weight, right? From the upper part to the lower part. And protects the spinal cord. So, you see, in between vertebrae, you have the intervertebral discs, right? Fibrocartilage. Must be strong. Yeah. In fibrocartilage, you have plenty of fibers. Lot of fibers. And chondrocyte in lacunae. So that's why this is called fibrocartilage. Okay. Collagen fibers. So those are three types of cartilages. Now, bones. In adult skeleton, you have 206 bones. And the bones join at the joints. So bones meet each other at the joints. And the main function of the bones is movement. By forming joints, bones help to move the body parts. You know that, right? By forming joints, bones help in the movement with the help of muscles. Without muscles, bones won't be able to move at the joints. Support. Bones form the whole skeleton, right? And you know that your skeleton supports the whole body. Protection. I have mentioned all this before. Bones protect important organs. For example, brain, eyeballs, right? Oral cavity organs, your heart, lung, Those are protected by spinal cord, by the bones. Storage of minerals. Huge amount of calcium and few other minerals are stored in the bone. In the matrix of the bone, you have huge amount of calcium, phosphate and other chemicals. So if in your blood the calcium concentration goes down, bones release the calcium from its matrix to the blood. So blood level of calcium will go up. Okay. So you see, bones not only store the calcium but regulates the blood calcium. If blood calcium goes down, bones will release the calcium into the blood. Blood cell formation, you know that inside the bone you have red bone marrow, which is the primary site for the production of blood cells. Bone marrow produces blood cells. Also, inside the bone, you have yellow bone marrow. Not only red bone marrow, yellow bone marrow, which is fat or adipose tissue. And you all know that fat is considered as a source of energy. So, when metabolism of fat occurs, plenty of ATPs are produced. So, those are the important functions of your bones. Now, classification of bones. How we classify the bones? We classify the bones in two ways. We classify the bones in how many ways? In two ways. Okay? One is called by looking the shape. By looking at the shape of the bones, we divide the bones into long bones, short bones, irregular bones, and flat bones. So, long bones are long. For example, your femur, your humerus, your radius, ulna, tibia, fibula, those are long bones. Short bones, example, cubical shaped bones, you see here in your wrist, you have carpal bones, you know that, right? Carpal bones, these are short, cubical shaped bones. You have tarsal bones. Then, irregular bones don't have any particular shape. They are not long, neither short, neither flat. So, they don't have any particular shape. For example, vertebrae. You all know that vertebrae has a body and how many processes? 7 processes, right? Spinous process, transverse processes, superior inferior articular processes, right? So they are going in different directions. So that make the bone irregular. Doesn't have any particular shape. So vertebrae is a good example of irregular bone. Then flat bones. What are the flat bones? Flat bones are flat, usually slightly curved like this. So this is a flat bone. Flat, slightly curved. For example, your parietal bone, right? Occipital bone, like this, right? Remember occipital, parietal. Sternum is also a flat bone. So those are 4 types of bones based on the shape. There is another type. Some books group that as a separate group. This is called sesamoid. Sesamoid bone. Example, patella. It looks like the seed. When you go to Burger King, right? Eat burger, on the burger bun, you'll see tiny seeds, right? Sesame seed. So, sesamoid bone. So, that's the classification based on the shape. Another way of classification is by looking at the texture. By looking at the texture, we divide the bones into two types, very simple, compact and spongy. Compact bone is hard bone and spongy bone is soft. Under the microscope it looks like honeycomb. Lot of spaces in it. So compact is the hard bone and spongy is the soft bone. Spongy bone is also called cancellous bone. Okay? So two types based on the texture. Here you see a long bone, and in a long bone you have both compact and spongy type bones. First look at the upper end. This is a humerus. You see the upper end. In the upper end, outer layer is compact. That means hard. So this is compact. Only forms the outer layer. This is hard bone. And inside you have spongy. Okay, so this is the soft bone or spongy bone inside. Okay. In the shaft part, you have mostly compact bone. And you know, inside the shaft, you have a cavity. So this is compact bone, and this cavity inside the shaft is called medullary cavity. Medullary cavity. Okay. Now, this cavity contains bone marrow. So the cavity contains bone marrow. In early stage of life, red bone marrow is present everywhere inside the long bone. Remember, in early stage of life, red bone marrow is present everywhere inside the long bone. That means inside the, is different color. So inside the spongy bone, you have spaces. You remember I said it's honeycomb like. So those spaces are filled with red bone marrow at the head, as well as inside the medullary cavity you have red bone marrow. Okay, in early stage of life, everywhere, very simple. Both inside the spongy as well as medullary cavity. In adults, the red bone marrow in the medullary cavity is replaced by yellow bone marrow. So this red bone marrow becomes yellow in the medullary cavity. In the head, it is always red bone marrow. It will never be yellow bone marrow. But in adults, the red bone marrow in the medullary cavity becomes yellow bone marrow, which is actually a fat or adipose tissue. Okay, so basically adipose tissue replaces the red bone marrow. This adipose tissue can act as a stored form of energy. And recent studies have found that this yellow bone marrow can again be converted to red bone marrow. This is the result of recent study. If in adult body you need more production of red bone blood cells, the yellow bone marrow can be converted to red bone marrow again. Anyway, so this is the long bone and the structure of a long bone. You see here, inside the medullary cavity, you see yellow bone marrow. That means it is an adult long bone. And this is the structure of spongy bone. If you see under microscope, you see these are called trabeculae, these processes, and you have spaces in between. And these spaces are filled with red bone marrow. Okay, all the time, throughout the life. It will never be converted to yellow. Okay. Inside the flat bones, you have spongy bone. So flat bone structure is like this. It has inner and outer layers. So this is outer layer, this is inner layer, these are compact, and in between you have a spongy bone. So this is spongy trabeculae, like different direction. This is spongy. So compact is inner and outer layers, and spongy is inside. So it is like a sandwich, right? Looks like a sandwich. So outer and inner layers are compact and spongy is inside. Now, as I told you, just simple, remember, inside the spongy bone, you have red bone marrow throughout the life. Make sense? You have red bone marrow inside the spongy bone all the time. Make sense? So it is simple, just remember that. But the red bone marrow inside the medullary cavity becomes what? Yellow bone. Make sense? Is it clear? So, if I now ask you that in an adult, where you will find red bone marrow? Inside the head of long bone, make sense? All the time. And inside the flat bones. Always red bone marrow. And in infants, everywhere. And that is the primary site of blood cell formation. Okay. So you see the flat bone, two layers of compact and spongy inside. Okay. Now we will see the structures on the bone that provides attachment to the muscles and ligaments. So you have seen, when you studied the bones, you have seen different structures on the bone. For example, trochanters, remember? Tubercles, right? Or condyles. You have seen those structures. Spine, process. So some of those structures are for the attachment of muscles or ligaments. Some of those structures are to form joints. Okay, so we'll see what are those structures on the bones. Those structures are for the muscles and ligaments. Attachment of muscles and ligaments are tuberosity, crest, trochanter, line, tubercle, epicondyle, spine, and process. So these structures are for the attachment of muscles and ligaments. Tuberosity. You must remember, you have seen a few tuberosities. For example, this one, tibial tuberosity. Remember that? Ischial tuberosity. So these are kind of round structures. Not exactly round, okay? But kind of elevated round structures. And you know patellar ligament, right? Gets attached here. So for ligament. Crest, narrow prominent ridge. This is the iliac crest. Usually refers to the top part of the bone. So iliac crest. You have seen that. Trochanter for the muscles. You must remember greater trochanter, lesser trochanter in femur. Gluteal muscles, you know, gluteus maximus, medius, gluteal muscles are huge muscles, right? You know that. Those muscles get attached to the trochanters, like this. Okay. So trochanters are large, blunt, irregular structure or surface. Line, you have seen some lines, nuchal line, remember? Anybody remember nuchal lines? In the back of the occipital for the muscles, neck muscles. Gluteal lines in the iliac ilium. Tubercle, small round structure, greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, in the upper part of the humerus. You have seen that, greater, lesser tubercle. Epicondyle, you must remember condyles. At the lower end of femur, you have two large condyles, right? These are the condyles. Remember that, everybody? Condyles. So these are condyles. But you see here, above the condyle, you have another round structure that is called epicondyle. So it is like, sitting on the condyle. Sometimes you carry your small child on your shoulder, right? If your child says, I can't walk anymore, you might put it on your shoulder. So you are condyle and your child is epicondyle, sitting on the condyle, okay? So remember, epicondyles are for the attachment of muscles, but condyles are for joints. That's why you don't see condyles are listed here, because these are the structures only for the attachment of muscles and ligaments. Condyles form joint, you know that. So then spine. Spine is sharp, slender projection. You must remember spinous process, spine. This is the spine too, spine of the scapula. So not always exactly the definition fits to the name of the structure, but roughly when we say tubercle, we think a small round structure. When we say tuberosity, large round structure. So tubercle is the baby tuberosity. So that's the way name. Then process. Any structure, when it sticks out from the main part of the bone, can be termed as a process. For example, transverse processes, remember? In the vertebrae, spinous process, right? Superior articular process, inferior articular process. So, zygomatic process, masted process, styloid process. So, those are the structures sticking out from the main part of the bone. Can go to any direction. So, you can term that as a process. Okay, now we'll see the structures on the bone that help to form joints, not for attachment of muscles or ligaments. These are the structures help to form joints. Head, facet, condyle, rams. Now, you all know that head forms joint. For example, head of humerus, right? Forms which joint? Shoulder joint. Head of the femur forms hip joint, right? You all know that. So, heads are for the joints. Facets. You see here, these are two vertebrae. This is the upper vertebrae, this is the lower vertebrae. And you know that vertebrae has superior inferior articular processes, right? And this is inferior articular process of vertebrae above. This is superior articular process of vertebrae below, right? So these two processes get attached like this to each other, like this. Make sense? So inferior articular of the vertebrae above, superior articular of the vertebrae below. They get attached like this. And in this surface area, you see smooth, flat structure. Those are called facets. So facets get attached to each other like this. Articular facets. So facets form joints. Smooth, nearly flat articular surface. Condyle. Large round structures form joint. Condyles, lateral medial condyles, lateral medial condyles. Okay, so these are large round structures to form joints. ramus. Arm-like part of a bone is called a ramus. Looks like an arm. So this is the ramus of the mandible. You already know. And you see, this part of ramus forms temporomandibular joint. So this part is called the condyle, mandibular condyle. It is forming the joint, the upper part of ramus. So those are the structures for the joints. Now we'll see depressions and openings in the bone. You also have seen depressions, right, in the bone. You remember fossa? I mentioned fossa is like this, right? Depression, in which a gland or fat or some structure can fit or sit in it. So it's like sink-like or basin-like structure. So you have seen depressions, you have seen openings in the bones. Now we'll see, first let's see the depressions, okay? So if you see the depression is like this, that's the point of lecture. Okay, so if you just copy this, you can print out this like 10 pages instead of okay, so if you see the depression on the bone is like this is called a fossa, okay? So in a fossa, you remember hypophyseal fossa, like this, pituitary gland sits in it, right? So this is an example of fossa. Now if you see the depression is long like this, a tendon or ligament can lie in it, that is called what? Groove or sulcus, same thing, groove or sulcus. You all know groove. You have heard this term. You can make a groove on the wood, a piece of wood, you can make a groove, right? So groove or sulcus, like this. So those are depressions. Now we'll see openings. If you see the opening is round or almost round, that is called a foramen. Remember foramen magnum, obturator foramen, right? So it is round or almost round, through which a nerve or blood vessel can pass. Now, through foramen magnum, which structure passes? The spinal cord. It's large one. Then, fissure. If you see the opening is elongated, long like this is called a fissure. Okay. So this is what? No, this is foramen, and this is fissure. Make sense? So through which usually blood vessels and nerves pass. Then sinus, you already know. We have talked about sinus. Air-filled cavities inside the bone. Okay, so maxillary sinus is the largest one, right? A large sinus inside the maxilla. So cavity inside the bone filled with air. Then fossa, I have already talked. Meatus. Meatus is canal-like passage. It's not like opening like this. This is called a foramen, right? Remember, this is a foramen. But if you see, it is like a tunnel. It's like a tunnel. That is a meatus. External acoustic meatus. You see here. It's like a tunnel going inwards. Okay. So that is meatus. There were a couple of questions in your exam from this, like groove or fossa. I'll take those out on the grade. But we somehow we talked about the grooves or sulcus before. But did you get it? Ideas? Yes. Okay. So what is this? If you see round or almost round, foramen. If you see elongated, like long, fissure, right? You see a through passage, tunnel-like meatus, right? If you see an elongated depression, groove, right, in which a ligament can lie or a nerve can lie. Okay, good. If you see the depression is like this, it's fossa. Okay, good. So those are the markings. Some are for the attachment of muscles, some are for the formation of joints, some are for the passage of the structures. Now we'll see the structure of a long bone. The covering of a bone is called periosteum. Peri means around, osteum means bone, right? So the covering of the bone is called periosteum. So this is a long bone, so around the bone you have periosteum. That covers the bone. Now periosteum has two layers. So this is periosteum, it has two layers. Outer is fibrous, that gives protection, always you remember. Fibrous structure is tough, so that should be the outer one. I saw in the test someone, a couple of you mentioned the opposite, and it draw the synovial joint. So I told you before many times, outer one must be fibrous because fibrous structure is soft or tough, right? So that makes sense. And inner layer is called osteogenic layer. So outer one, fibrous, is for protection, and inner one is called osteogenic. Remember the name. Osteo means bone and genes is production, right? Osteogenic layer helps to form the new bone. That's why it is called osteogenic. In osteogenic layer, you have different types of bone cells. Different types of bone cells are present in osteogenic layer. Osteoblasts, osteoclasts, and osteogenic stem cells. So those are the cells present in the inner layer, osteogenic layer. Now just in this connection, know that why those cells are there in osteogenic layer. Osteogenic layer produces new bone. So osteoblasts are young bone cells. Young bone cells, they produce matrix of the bone. So matrix comes from osteoblasts. So osteoblasts are young cells produce matrix. Then osteogenic cells are what kind of cells? Stem cells. Stem cells do what? Produce new cells. You all know that. Stem cells produce what? New cells. So now you see these two types of bone cells are very important to produce new bone tissue. Make sense? Because in new bone tissue, you must have what? Matrix, and you must have new cells. Make sense? These two things together will form new bone tissue, right? Cells and matrix. So that's why osteogenic layer has these cells help to produce new bone or new bone tissue. Another type of cells are present in osteogenic layer. Those are called osteoclasts. Osteoclasts are giant cells, giant bone cells, big, large, and they love to destroy the matrix. So osteoclasts destroy matrix. So you see, osteoblasts produce matrix, right? Osteoblasts do what? Produce new matrix, right? And osteoclasts do what? Opposite, right? Destroy the matrix. Is it clear? Okay. So, when a new bone is formed, both production and destruction are needed, you know, to shape the bones. Sometimes when you build the house, right, you don't only put the things, sometimes you polish, right? Destroy some excess, you know, structures that we don't need that. So you will make it small. Like when you see a hole in the wall of your house, right? You do what? You put speckles.
Yeah.
Okay. You put that white cement inside it, right? Then you do what? Let it dry and then polish, right? Make the surface smooth. So bone is like that. Okay. When fracture, you know, is healed, roughly bone tissue is formed there. Then you have to destroy some excess bone tissue from there, right? So you see that both osteoblasts and osteoclasts help to form new bone. Both are important. Okay, so that is periosteum. It has two layers, outer fibers for the protection and inner osteogenic for the new bone tissue production. Now, there is another layer. It is not periosteum. This is called endosteum. Endo means inside. So, endosteum is a layer around the medullary cavity here, attached to the bone. So, inner surface of the compact bone here, you have the endosteum. So, periosteum is outer covering, endosteum is around the medullary cavity. Periosteum has two layers. Okay. So, those are the connective tissue layers present inside the bone. Here you see, this is periosteum and this is endosteum. Now, periosteum has two layers, outer fibers, inner osteogenic layer. Okay, so you already know three types of bone cells. All start with what? Osteo, right? Osteo means bone. Chondro means what? Cartilage. See, chondrocyte. Remember I showed you chondrocyte inside lacunae in cartilage. Okay, so osteoblasts are young cells, produce matrix. Osteogenic cells are stem cells, produce new bone cells, right? Osteoclasts are what kind of cells? Small or big? Big, large, giant cells, right? They love to destroy the matrix, right? Now, there is another type of cells. Those are mature cells. Those are called osteocytes. Osteo means bone, cyte means cell. These are mature bone cells. So these are four different types of bone cells. Osteocytes are mature bone cells, osteoblasts are young cells, osteogenic cells are stem cells, and osteoclasts are giant cells. Love to destroy. Okay, now tell me a simple question. Which one you think should have more mitochondria? Mitochondria is called what? Powerhouse, right? So which one or which type should have more mitochondria and nucleus?
Osteogenic.
Osteoclasts. Because they break, right? To break you need more energy. Make sense? So they are giant cells. You know, you see wrestling, right? Wrestling, big guys, right? They love to destroy the opponent. Right? So giant need a lot of energy, right, to do that. So osteoclasts have more nuclei inside them and more mitochondria. Make sense? And that makes sense. Now you remember at the very beginning today I mentioned that bones store huge amount of what? Which chemical, which mineral? Calcium, right? Remember that? And I also mentioned if blood concentration of calcium goes down, bone releases calcium. That goes to the blood, right? To increase the blood level of calcium. Now someone has to break the bone or matrix to release the calcium, right? Otherwise calcium will not come out from the bone. So the matrix releases the calcium by osteoclasts, break the matrix, and that releases the calcium into the blood. Okay, so very important, osteoclasts. So you see here, these are just drawings. So this is the young osteoblast, produce matrix. This is stem cell. This is osteocytes. Osteocytes have a number of processes, and then osteoclasts. Okay. The last thing.